I know, guys, I was incognito for a day there and I feel really bad about it, but I had to get finished with that course, and that course is down there in the description for swing trading. So if you are a beginner, it is a super beginner friendly strategy you can learn there. It really teaches you about the moving averages and how to use them. It teaches you about the MACD and RSI. It's a fantastic strategy, and that is down in the link in the description for one of the craziest sales you'll ever see in all of YouTube. Probably the craziest sale you've ever seen in your life. $50. That's right. It is 90% off right now down in the description for a very, very short time. So look into that if you're trying to learn about some technical analysis. And we need to do some technical analysis today because we could be getting some kind of dead cat bounce come tomorrow. So as we look at the stock market today, as we get into some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Nvidia, AMD, and Meta going forward, we're going to also take a close look at AMC and GME and look what is happening on that side of the scale. But as we look into the SPY, first thing, just zooming in on a 30-minute, I believe this is going to be a pretty important one to watch for now. We need to get you those daily expected moves. And the one thing I wanted to point out about the daily expected moves, we mentioned this in Sunday's video, how the weekly has a much bigger implied volatility, so you have to be open to some big swings. And we just got a big swing in one direction, but if we're able to cross up on this MACD, we could see a big swing in the other direction. So it's important to look at those daily expected moves. 561.51 to the upside, and then we do have 552.37 to the downside. Now, the reason I just wanted to mention some kind of dead cat bounce is because we're seeing some odd behavior from the dollar, seeing this go down overnight last night. And usually when you do see that, that means there is some sort of insider buying. So we have to pay attention to that and see if this is some kind of rigged move to the downside that might be even a bear trap, or we could see a dead cat bounce that proves to be a bull trap. So it's kind of looking like trap here, which this is exactly what we were looking for, right? If you were subscribed to this channel, and thank you so much if you're subscribed, and congratulations if you were able to use this info and you found it helpful. Give you a big thumbs up and a pat on the back, because we said the most likely scenario from this area is we go up towards that monthly expected move and we see this start to die out while the Qs actually make the lower high. We're going to talk about those in a minute, but exactly that has happened. Now you'll notice on the SPY, what do? Well, we create the signal, and then this is why you need to manage that risk like we teach you in both of the courses down in the description. Just remember the swing trading one, a little bit more beginner friendly, and then the one up from that is going to be how to trade in any market, really things that you should know as a trader in order to trade in any kind of market. And when volatility is higher, that thing is going to be good for you. So we looked for this divergence, we found it, and then you see one more rigged move up, and that's managing the trade there. It's not necessarily that you were wrong, you just had the wrong timing on this. So if we pay attention to these things, we can really make good moves. And now we're seeing that those daily expected moves have shifted down, meaning the trend is changing here, even though we haven't lost this level here. If we do go solidify some kind of lower high here for the SPY, we could see that prove down again, really signifying, hey, we're in some kind of negative trend. And then we just want to watch out for any divergences down at these levels, right? So we will be paying attention to those things. And if you want to watch the stock market with us live, we will be live every single morning. So going forward, we just want to be really open to that, because if we keep seeing weakness here, we can see some big daily pullbacks. So don't think that this can't get crazier. We have volatility giving us a big signal, which we're going to cover after we do AMC and GME towards the end of this video. You have a closing bar below the 9-day moving average. When you take the swing trade course, this is a big signal that you need to pay attention to if you're trying to swing trade here, because you're closing below that 9-day moving average and you're about to cross over on this MACD. So this can cross over and tell you, hey, there could be some kind of bigger pullback happening here. And that is just because look how high up this MACD is right now. It might do a whole move to get closer to that center line and then see that curl up over time, getting lower towards that center line. That is going to be a great signal if we're going to continue up in this market. But how volatility is scaling up, we have to be open to this thing really seeing some weakness here. As of right now, I believe the most probable thing for going into tomorrow, unless we see something actually break in the system, is this is going to prove to be some kind of trap. We're going to see a little bounce, and then I would really be paying attention to this 561.51 tomorrow. But you easily could go either direction. It's pretty much 30-minute curls up, hey, good things. But if you start to curl over this daily, if you really start to confirm that with the lagging indicator being the MACD, if you can confirm that with a little red bar, you might be in a daily pullback, and we could go test that 20 on the daily time frame. So looking over at the Qs, you've already made that signal. So the Qs are really showing weakness here, and we told you how the Qs look like the weaker of the two. When you look at the macro side of things or the shorter time frames, we said the lower high was the most likely scenario here. While the SPY goes makes the next high, you know that the Qs won't catch up, and that's exactly what happened here. Great signal, hopefully, and thank you so much if you're subscribed and you found that info helpful. I know some people said it really helped them out. So you're noticing this crossed over a couple days ago, and now we just fall through the floor. We're closing beneath the 20, so you are in pullback mode as of right now. Doesn't mean you can't go up and test the 20 again intraday. So if this is going to keep pulling back, we'd really look for that 50, look for this kind of line in the sand towards that 473, 474 price point, which happens to be where a daily expected move is. So let's go into a 30-minute real quick and show you guys where those daily expected moves are. We do have 489.09 to the upside, and we do have 474.45 to the downside. So the key thing to remember here as well is we are seeing that dollar come down dramatically like we would see in rigged moves, but we're seeing some interesting behavior across the board. We're not necessarily seeing it rip up at the end of the day. There is potential that that could be a sign of big bot purchase orders into GME or AMC. So there's a bunch of arguments to be had there. We don't want to make things overcomplicated. So we would just say, if this is going to prove to be a trap, most likely this 30-minute will curl up, get above that 9, and then go up towards this area, towards the top side of our daily expected move. That would be a 489.09. And then what we have to pay attention to is this is the bottom side weekly expected move, this purple line here. So you do by Friday have a 68% chance to land near this area. So if we are going to see some kind of pattern to end up back in this is just a scenario I think that would be very cool to play out, is what if we do see a bounce tomorrow and then that starts to be given up as we get to that daily expected move and then it curls back down. But then on Friday, we actually are able to curl back up with something huge, maybe Netflix earnings, and we see this divergence proven. But in order for all of this to set up, earnings is a very hard thing to trade. We talk about that all the time with that 50-50 flip. It really is a 50-50 flip. A lot of banks seeing some, or at least it was, I can't remember who had it. Was it J? It was J&J. A lot of the healthcare actually seeing some upside there. So you're not seeing weakness in the Dow while you're seeing the Qs and the SPY really head down. Interesting behavior there. So really it are the Qs going to be able to curl up this 30-minute to get some kind of bounce here? Are we going to get a dead cat and then see this trend really continue? Because the reason you have to talk about dead cat bounce is because of how deep this is in negative territory. You notice we haven't been this deep in a long time. Actually, this is the deepest we have been since. Actually, this probably goes back even further. Okay, this is pretty much the last time we were at this level was April, okay, mid-April. So we haven't seen something like this in a long time. And the reason that this is overall, has a higher probability to create a lower high again is just because of how deep you are into negative territory. It's going to be quite the struggle to get all the way back up into a positive trend in one go. So we'll pay attention to divergences in case we see that. We don't want to get overly bearish, overly bullish. We just want to play the signals in front of us. And if you do have shorts right now, you're probably feeling good. So I would want you to continue feeling good by paying attention if your signals start to show upward moves. That would be a very, very good thing to do there. Now, as we click forward, we're going to look at things like Apple. We're going to see a bunch of gaps down. And the main theory here is going to be, well, some of them we're seeing some flagging. So this can continue if we need to make a little stronger base and then see that bounce. But the 30 minutes here, we're really going to be paying attention to a lot of stocks, 30-minute charts curling up, because in this area, you'll notice we might even have a little bit of a base here, and then we might have a left, we might have a head, we might go create some kind of right shoulder. So as far as it goes right now, it really looks like we are going to be creating a lot of bull traps as far as the end of the week goes, and we might see something really start to break next week. So we'll pay attention to it. It looks like we're trying to head to lower levels dramatically, so I wouldn't just say like, oh, this dramatic drop here that actually held is just going to be bought up in one day. I really think you do have a higher probability here for some kind of lower high. Across the board for Apple, And we're noticing some things here, right? We were talking about Tesla a little bit. Let me just get rid of some of these lines for a second, just to talk about it, because Tesla here does have an opportunity. It really is not seeing as much weakness, but we did talk about it live and said, hey, this right here is saying, hey, I could go positive, I could go negative, because it's very close to the center line. So you really want to pay attention and react if that thing curls down. Hey, it curled down on this bar and negativity came, but we overall could be carving out some kind of base here. So if this 30-minute is able to curl up, I want you to notice how Tesla is closer to the center line. So closer to going to a positive trend here. That really separates Tesla from the rest of them. And I think that's an important thing to think about going into tomorrow. I don't believe it's by a weekly expected move or anything like that. And Tesla is supposed to have extreme volatility. So it actually could just curl up on a MACD and see positivity. If it doesn't do that, you're going to most likely see more negativity going forward. Now, as we click into Amazon, this is one that I actually really liked for this little trade setup right here. It looked good, but when that crosses down, you see it cross down. Yeah, unlucky with the bar there because you gap down. But once you do cross down, negativity is there. Now we're trying to carve out some kind of base for a bounce, but I want you to see how negative Amazon really is. So the most likely scenario here is we are going to make some kind of lower high if we keep bouncing from this area. Now we have to pay attention. Is that thing going positive? Because, you know, we do V-shape every once in a while, and we're seeing a dollar go, we're seeing Dixie go down dramatically, which tells me there could have been investments going into the market today, and therefore we could V-shape from this area. So you want to be open to that. But right now the bigger probabilities are with maybe some kind of gap fill that actually ends up failing for Amazon. But we have a lot of stocks outside of their weekly moves, and you guys know that we have 68% chances to land in those zones. As we look at Nvidia, this one, again, extremely deep into negative territory, and you're going into the bottom of this zone. Now, if you can just look back, I mean, I believe it was last week when we were up in these areas last Wednesday, and people were like, hey, if this thing does pull back dramatically, where do you think it's heading to? I said, if we're going to get an overall 2-hour pullback, the bottom of this area here would make sense. And looking at that on the daily scale, you can really see how that 50 is catching up. I believe it was the daily scale we were talking about. So if you're looking at, you know, Nvidia in this area, the daily scale, we said this, you know, the 50 is most likely where you're going to head. It keeps you in that zone. We could touch that even tomorrow and then just see that thing buy back up. So what you're really looking for from Nvidia over the next few days are some positivity. Is it going to give you the swing trade? That's really what I would say here. That's why we put the course out there. That's why I worked really hard on it, because you could get one more swing up if this market's going to continue to be bullish, and all you need here is to create some kind of stronger base and curl back up into positive territory, because you didn't really give up this level yet. We haven't given up our little box. So it still could experience positivity, and how you're going to see that positivity coming is if this 30-minute can curl up at any time. But if that positivity is fully going to come, it's going to have to be pretty strong, because you're very negative here. You're very low. So you see how much work and time it's going to take to actually go positive. And that would mean you most likely do need to see buying for like 2 days straight to go back to positive territory. So not looking the best for Nvidia. It looks like across the board, we're starting to see more looks that look like they're about to set up another lower high if we get some kind of dead cat bounce here. AMD, similar story. Now, AMD did something interesting that I think we should talk about. In this channel, on this channel, we actually look at weekly ranges. We teach you that in the course down below as well. And we're noticing this huge gap down. So the key thing about this gap is your weekly range was right here. So when you gap below a weekly range and you're not able to take it back quickly, that is a serious sign of weakness. And then you want to say, now, as it's really low here, sure, it can see some kind of dead cat bounce, but that is turning into resistance. So you notice how much work it's going to take to go positive. By the time you're up here, you could already be overbought and just see that resistance come in and then see that turn down. So you're really waiting for the stronger base here in order to do anything with AMD, but it is just cutting through levels that we've been paying attention to, and this is like the first time that that's really happened, right? So it cut through this 169, it just gapped below it, so no chance there, and now you're just cutting through this 160.83, but we're seeing that bounce. So is the dollar going to be calling this as a rigged move? It kind of looks like it to me, like we're about to see some kind of rip higher. And then the question is, do we get rejected at that weekly expected move for AMD? Do we get rejected and then turn back down and continue the the negative trend, or are we going to see a seriously rigged move and just see the market completely bought back up? That would be crazy. Meta looking forward, we wanted to pay attention to this because once again, you're outside of a weekly expected move. You're starting to see how we're gapping down and just going lower, seeing that MACD in an ugly spot, but you're extremely oversold. So if we are going to see a bounce here, hey, that makes sense, but you can now use weekly expected moves as resistance from these areas. So that's key to pay attention to. But more so, I just want to encourage you to follow your signals. If the 30-minute curls up, and then curls down in negative territory, right? If this gets close to that center line and curls back down, whether it's flagging or whether that is a solid bounce, if that curls down at any time, that means negativity, and that could test the low, could go make a new one. And a long time ago, Meta, we were talking about Meta up towards the high on the daily chart here. We were talking about this on the daily chart. This thing crossed over on this bar right here, and people were saying, you know, how low do you think this could go? And I said, well, we actually said this a few days ago, right? We said this up here, like it would make total sense for us to go test 453.08. And people are like, man, that's really low. That's crazy. And I said, well, the reason 453.08 would be important is because that's how low you really have to get to that center line for the swing trade to set up. And I just want you to see how close we are to 453.08 and how we are at that center line. And I think that's a very key thing. So Meta really is at a key level here where I think it needs to gain some buying in it in order to not, you know, just fall through the floor and really depend on earnings going forward. So that is something to pay attention to. Now, AMC and GME, we did some crazy stuff today. It was really fun to watch this, but we saw AMC and GME trying to do big things. AMC trying to close above the 200 and head for that $6. You know, that is the point you need to get past this week based on the options data. This is the point you need to get past in order to see something unexpected, right? See something crazy, see some kind of gamma squeeze. We go up, we try to close above the 200, doesn't work out, and we fade. The key thing here was the 30-minute chart. We said the 30-minute chart, if that curls down at any time, that means it most likely is going to have a 30-minute pullback. And what happens? Well, we cross down on that MACD and we continue to be in some kind of pullback structure, some kind of sideways structure, really. So we'll have to see if this is able to turn back up come morning. Now, I did notify you guys that I'm no longer following this signal to sell at this point, just because I know that the crazy moment could just gap us up higher like crazy and then turn up this 30-minute. It's never going to look back. So I am holding my overall option plays here, not trying to trade it back and forth anymore, just because this is a time where you're very close to getting past that unexpected area where you could see a gamma squeeze. So I am holding on to this as of right now. Now, GameStop, as we look at the 30-minute chart, this one more so told you pullback as well. And the cool part for this was, look how close we were to seeing something crazy, and they don't want that to happen. So the short sellers most likely hammering down on this before it gets to a point where they don't expect it to go. If they don't expect it to go there, the market makers and the short sellers, this is that line in the sand where if you get above that, that can cause a gamma squeeze. So that is really what we're paying attention to here, seeing if this is able to get above 29.91, or at least get above, you know, you would say 30 at that point, get a flat number. But whenever this 30-minute curls down, you know you're going to get some kind of pullback. And what do we see? A little bounce, and it drops a little bit through the floor. Now, it is holding up better. So if this 30-minute curls up at any time, look how close you would be. And now you're not overbought to get through that 29.91. So I'd really pay attention to that, because on the daily scale, we do have this thing pointing up in positive territory. And really, this looked like the first test of that weekly range. So this is a time where you still could see something crazy, because you're above all the moving averages, you're crossed up on this MACD, you're getting a 30-minute pullback, yeah, but the RSI as well is above that center line. So I'd really pay attention to this. I don't believe this is dead by any means until that daily curls over. Then you might see a little bit more downward pressure, maybe towards the 200, even towards like $17. So big point to pay attention to. We could be seeing crazy stuff, and the market is being pretty wild. But the main signals, as far as the other stuff goes, like the dollar, I wanted to show you is, look how the dollar is dramatically dropping off today as the market drops off. Now, in the past, that has been known to be an insider buying signal. So I really want you to pay attention to that. Insiders could be buying here, and that is proven right there in the dollar, unless something funky is going on, unless we're seeing a huge bounce in TLT. But TLT, we're not necessarily seeing a huge bounce, at least hit the tape yet. So this is something I'm holding right now, by the way, is TLT, just in case because of the swing trade. So we're paying attention to this because are they funneling money into TLT? It doesn't look like it as of right now. Are they funneling money into the SPY? It's yet to be determined. We haven't seen that rigged move up happen yet. Are they buying into GME and AMC? Well, those things were positive most of the day, so it could be the case, but it's hard to say. So we want to go back to what we normally know. And what we normally know is if the dollar is going down and the stock market is going down at the same time, that most of the time, like 95% of the time, is insider buying. So you could see one more rigged move up to the upside, and we'll pay attention to that. You could be getting some kind of dead cat bounce. The last thing I wanted to talk about here was volatility able to close above the 200. That is massive, because you remember in the past when we said this is going to end up short squeezing again, that was because we weren't making that move above the 200. We were failing while the SPY was dropping. Volatility was dropping off below the 200. So that signaled to me, hey, this could be another short squeeze moment. And we were right about that. So now we're paying attention closer to volatility because you're only up 9.62%, which is not 10%. So you do not have an 85% chance to bounce over the next 2 trading days, even though I think that is pretty likely. I just wanted to show you how the daily is above all of the moving averages as of right now. Sorry, baby girl's having a little too much fun up there. And on the weekly scale, this is the main signal I wanted to show you. Remember, this is what we've been talking about for a long time, which is the weekly scale having this triple divergence. Is that going to curl up at any time? And I was like, it could happen over the next couple of weeks, and boom, it happened today. So this is where you really want to pay attention. Obviously, we have a few days left in the bar, but you do have the RSI above the center line, and we do have a couple more days to see what happens with this. I'm sorry about the screen. It's just hilarious. She found her voice and she is using it. She's not a very good singer, guys, okay? She's not like her dad. But as of right now, you would say the 30-minute, we are in a volatility pullback. So what could be happening as of tomorrow is, what if you retest some of these levels and then you're able to turn back up over time, maybe filling this gap? So I'd really pay attention to that if we see a bounce in the market, see if volatility is turning up while the SPY starts to turn down on a 30-minute. Very good signal. So thank you guys so much for watching. The main takeaway here is we saw a big move down right after what we expected. The SPY going up higher to make that divergence, and then seeing another rigged move. So it's good we're managing the trade and we're in at the right time, and then the Q's making the lower high. So we really have been following this very, very well in the last couple of weeks here, following it very well. And I hope that you guys were able to benefit from it, because we're seeing dramatic moves down. Now we could see those little bounces, but we want to see if those negative trends can continue, or if we're seeing something rigged that we just V-shape to the upside. So very good time to be cautious, very good time to really focus on managing your risk and your position size and all that good stuff, making sure you're seeing good setups. I would say 5 reasons to take a trade would be great in these type of scenarios where you're seeing some craziness across the board. So thank you guys so much for watching to the end of the video. It means a lot. Thank you for everyone who is liking and subscribing. Please like the video. It really helps out the channel. And thank you to everyone. There's already people taking that course, taking that swing trading course, and let me know what you think. I did have to refilm the videos yesterday. That's why I took overall the day off from streaming, just to really focus on it. And I want to make sure it's as good as it can be. I think there's always room for improvement. So if there's something that seems confusing to you, show up to the live video and ask some questions, and hopefully we can answer those for you. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a great night, and good luck with your trading tomorrow, and I'll see you live tomorrow morning. Peace.